Welcome to Pastor's Chat today. Well, today we're looking at Psalm 110. Psalm 110 was a psalm written by David. We know that from the title, a Psalm of David. David wrote this psalm, and it is also a messianic psalm. Probably as much as any other of the psalms, it speaks of Jesus Christ as the Messiah, the Christ, the coming one, the anointed one. David prophesies that one of his sons actually would be the Messiah. Now, this is interesting because Jesus quoted directly from this psalm in Matthew chapter 22. When the Pharisees were gathered together, it says, Jesus asked them, saying, "What do you think about the Christ, the Messiah? Whose son is he?" And they said to him, "The son of David." He said to them, Jesus said to them, to these Pharisees who were sitting around plotting how that they could catch him and catch him blaspheming, catch him trying to say that he is the Son of God. How then does David in the Spirit call him Lord, saying, "The Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand till I make your enemies your footstool"? If David then called him Lord, how is he his son? And no one was able to answer him a word, and from that day on did anyone dare ask him any more basically questions. And so this psalm is quoted more often in the New Testament than any other psalm. Matter of fact, verse 1 is quoted at least 25 times, and verse 4 another 5 times. 10 of these quotations or allusions are in the book of Hebrews alone. And so some of these are direct quotations, some of them there are allusions, but 25 times in the New Testament. Now, Peter actually also quoted from this psalm in his sermon on the day of Pentecost in Acts chapter 2. He quoted from this psalm, and again referring to the fact that David in the Spirit wrote this psalm. So David was inspired by the Holy Spirit of God to write one of the most messianic psalms in the New Testament. So let's see that this psalm actually breaks down into 3 different sections. First, David is proclaiming Jesus is king. He is exalted as king. The Lord said to my Lord, "Sit at my right hand until I make your enemies your footstool. The Lord shall send the rod of your strength out of Zion. Rule in the midst of your enemies. Your people shall be volunteers in the day of your power. In the beauties of holiness, from the womb of the morning, you have the dew of your youth." And then he speaks of the consecration of the king as a priest in verse 4. The Lord has sworn and will not relent. You are a priest forever according to the order of Melchizedek. And we'll talk about that later. And then the last 3 verses, he speaks of the vindication of the king priest as a conqueror. In verses 5 through 7, the Lord is at your right hand. He shall execute kings in the day of his wrath. He shall judge among the nations. He shall fill the places with the dead bodies. He shall execute the heads of many countries. He shall drink of the brook by the wayside. Therefore he shall lift up the head. It speaks of a coming day, a prophetic day when Jesus rules over all the kings of the earth as a king priest. He is a conqueror. Very interesting psalm that plays a major role in the New Testament, as we've already said. We see in these first verses, the Lord said to my Lord, the Lord said to my Lord. Now, David basically here is saying, Jehovah said to Adonai. If you'll look, capital L-O-R-D is Jehovah. L-O-R-D with little letters, and the O-R-D is Adonai. So the Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies your footstool. David was the highest ruler of the earth. And so Adonai he calls to be his Lord. And so Jesus is asking the question to these Pharisees, how can David call his son Lord at the same time? Well, the only way that could happen, if the Pharisees would admit it, is by the incarnation, because Jehovah God created David, and yet at the same time, Jesus as Messiah is the son of David. How could that happen? only by the incarnation, the virgin birth of Jesus Christ. But these Pharisees refused to admit that Jesus Christ is deity. This is a proclamation of the deity of Jesus Christ, one of the great ones in the Old Testament. Well, I trust that you'll study this verse and these passages with me, and you'll be just encouraged to know that our Jesus Christ is King of Kings and Lord of Lords, and you can always trust Him. God bless, and you have a wonderful, wonderful day.